All right, here we are rolling in episode 37 of the High Octane Dads podcast. Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I think we're so that's our age, so we're maybe that's a milestone. I don't know. We're old. We got a guest with us today that I've been really excited about. The stars aligned. We were able to make it work. We got Ajay Brown here with lots of cool stuff to talk about. So definitely ready to get started. Ajay, we're glad to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited that we finally been talking about it for a few months. I'm glad we finally got to make it happen.
Yeah, man. I don't even remember. I'm sure it was a Facebook group or something that we connected on through a podcasters thing or something. I forget, but I've listened to a good bit. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast, and then I'll tell everybody what I've listened to of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's called Prancing Horse Podcast. It's a Ferrari history and news show. I worked with Ferrari for 11 years. I still technically do, just in a different capacity than I used to. And it's just kind of telling the history of Ferrari, sharing the news. We did a review of the Ferrari movie, me and my wife. That was always fun. That was fun because she's not really into cars or anything. So for her to sit down and kind of give her perspective, we had two totally different perspectives of the movie. But it was just some good banter and just stuff like that. Just kind of having fun talking about the brand.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think every kid, right, that's into cars has at some point or another been in love with a Ferrari or another. Chris, I know, and we both have the the redneck Ferrari, and we both got the third gen Trans Ams, which it was red too. So,
well, don't let the Ferrari stuff fool you. That's what I did for 11 years, but I'm just a car guy at heart. I got a supercharged F-150. I've had some Harleys. Grew up doing around drag boats and sand rails and dirt bikes, and so I'm just a gearhead in general.
That's awesome, man. We're gonna have to talk about the drag boats at some point because that's I don't know, man. I've been 30-40 cutting across the water, and it's a little dicey. So that's wild.
Yeah, it had a big block Chevrolet in it it was a small block 427 with old Hillborn style mechanical stagger stack injection on alcohol.
Wow, that's awesome.
Awesome. That is definitely cool. One thing I was noticing in your background there, and I mentioned it before we started recording, but I'm going to bring it up again because these things went crazy for a minute there. These little U.S. General little toolboxes. Yeah. My wife got me one for Christmas, and I tell you, man, I put it on my nightstand immediately. Like it's a perfect catch-all for pocket knives and watches, and
it's perfect. I think I'm going to go grab about 3 or 4 more of them. So this one I thought was cool because it was red, kind of went with the Ferrari stuff, but it's got all my USB sticks in it and my cords and my pens and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, nightstand on top of the toolbox for pocket screwdrivers, like they're great for so much stuff.
Yeah.
I was in Tractor Supply the other day, and it's another brand, and they've released, it's a small, I think it was like $14.99, a little similar toolbox, but it wasn't U.S. General. I'm trying to remember. I don't know what brands Tractor Supply carries, but I was walking through there and was like, oh, that's cool. So it's catching on.
I think Cobalt might have one too.
Yeah, Cobalt has one. Snap-on actually used to sell them, and they might still do, and they were crazy expensive.
$1 million.
I mean, you get it for a low $20 payment for 67 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Something like that. No, that's awesome. Well, cool, man. Well, so I checked the podcast out, and that one of the first episodes I went to because I loved the Ferrari movie. And just any of those kind of biopic historical movies. So Rush, which and that one maybe, I guess it was pretty accurate. But what was the other one? Ford v Ferrari. That's a movie that I absolutely love. So I'm a photographer and do video and stuff, and just the videography in that movie and cinematography they had was spot on. Everything about it was great, in my opinion. And
yeah, so. I absolutely love that movie. And because I'm a Ford guy and I'm a Ferrari guy, so for me it was kind of like I actually ended up going and seeing it at a private viewing with the Ferrari Club of America, the San Antonio chapter. And it's a great movie.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. I love all that stuff. And Chris and I, we did an episode about, great car movies, and those were definitely up there on my list. And then, was it The World's Fastest Indian? Was a super cool story and I had never heard that before. I guess it was just something I had not been exposed to. And so that was a good one too.
I mean, I know me growing up, Gone in 60 Seconds was probably and is still probably my favorite movie.
Yeah. I just watched it the other week. I'm like, all right, I need something different to watch. And I was like, on 60 seconds it is.
Yep.
And then I watched the original right after that.
There you go. There you go.
I feel like that was the first car movie. I think Chris and I talked about this, that, for me, it was just, it grabbed me quick. And that was the first time I remember going like, I want a Ferrari like that. And, just seeing that, that there was the scene where they were out in front of like the condo stealing the car and whatnot. I don't know. That whole movie it was good.
It's
Fond
funny.
memories.
When she steals the Testarossa, she says, always was a sucker for a redhead. And growing up, I always thought she was just talking about the car because it was red. Well, later on, you find out that Testarossa actually means redhead in Italian. And so, like, I was probably, I don't know, 23, 24 or something. I rewatched the movie and she said that. And I was like, oh, new meaning. So I'd seen the movie probably 100 times up to that point. But yeah,
That's awesome.
it's just a good movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my first serious girlfriend was a redhead too. And then my car was red. So I don't know. I guess I got a thing for red.
Yeah.
We'll find out if my wife listens because she'll give me a little jab later about that one.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure she will. As she should.
Yeah. No, man, that's super cool. And, Chris, I meant to mention this to you, and we talked last time about some local events that are going on. There's one, I went to a cruise in last Monday and posted some pictures on the Facebook group, but they're doing a Smokey and the Bandit like show. So you were talking about a road trip. Might be worth coming. They're going to have some like folks that, do reenactor, like, dress like the actors and stuff. I think some of the actual actors will be there.
When is this?
I will look it up. I don't know exactly. I'm going to pull that up while we chat. But yeah, I'm thinking I might have to make the trip for that one because I think it was like an hour or so away.
Where? So I missed the first part of it. Where is this at? I know it's near you, but I missed what you said.
I'm trying to remember for sure exactly where it's at, but I'm going to look it up here in a moment. We can keep talking while I'm trying to find it because I don't remember exactly where he said it was going to be at. But we've got so there's a town near here where stuff like In the Heat of the Night and stuff was filmed, and so there's a lot of that kind of stuff in a lot of these little small towns around me. So I'll have to find out exactly where it's at. But yeah. So what tell us a little bit about the Supercharged F-150, man. Is that your main project or is that just the daily? Cool. Like I got to hear more about this.
That's the hot rod. That's the one that I'll keep forever. I bought it when I was 19 years old. It's a Harley Davidson F-150, so it's pretty much a 4-door Lightning. It's got rods, got pistons, got cams, got a full fuel system. It's just itching for a Whipple, and that's pretty much all it needs.
That's awesome. I remember when those things were new, and honestly, you don't really hear a lot about them anymore.
Man, they're pulling crazy money. I think I paid $12,000 for mine. Would have been 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I mean, now a good clean one like mine, I mean, it'd probably pull 28, 29,000. I mean, It's crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
Lightnings are even more.
Yeah, I knew Lightnings always pulled a premium, but yeah. I remember those trucks, but I used to see them a lot, and now I don't ever see any of them.
They all got beat up and clapped out as work trucks. I think
pretty much
10 more years, I'm going to have me a Survivor.
Probably.
So what year is it? Did I miss that?
That's an 02.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
I seen a black one in town earlier that was, super clean, had like a camper shell on it and all that. And I just, for whatever reason, it caught my eye, and it wasn't done up. I mean, it was just stock Survivor looking truck. I mean, it was like, that thing is really clean. Like somebody's took care of it,
Yeah, it's funny. I had it parked out usually it's in the garage, but I had it out in the driveway today, and my mom came over, and she's like, dang, I forgot how nice that truck looks when it's outside. And I was like, yeah, I've kept it pretty nice. So, yeah. But yeah, it's just been kind of my little permanent project. Blew it up when I was 20 years old. Spun a rod bearing because I was making way too much boost for what the bottom end could hold, and built the motor in it myself. Built the transmission in it myself. It's got a converter in it. So at some point it'll probably freshen up the rear end and throw a Whipple on it.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yep, that's sweet.
Yeah, what I'd really like to do is do drag and drives with it.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, get it to where it's like running like 11s or something like that consistently, and then do a drag and drive. I'm on a big drag and drive kick right now.
Yeah. That's one thing I love to do with my Caprice, because it's just, I can pack all sorts of crap in the back. You know, James don't take up a lot of space. He can sleep in the back. But yeah, that's something I love to do. Yeah.
No, so you know, to plug another podcast, we went on the Drag Drive Repeat podcast. I don't know if you follow those guys. That's all they cover. They eat, sleep, and breathe drag and drive. So if you're into that, like, definitely go check those guys out. So Eric White is he also runs a page called Motorsport Paparazzi, and I think it's Motorsport Paparazzi, something paparazzi. Pretty sure that I got that right. And he's just hit like 100,000 or 1 million followers, something crazy. Like, his page blew up. And he actually, this last Summit catalog that actually came out, his photography was the centerfold. There was a full spread of it, and the cover photo was some of his photos. And that's the guys. So they've got a Summit sponsorship, and you can buy, if you go on summit.com, summitracing.com, you can get Drag Drive Repeat branded shirts from Summit. And when I was at the one in Atlanta, I actually went and looked for some, but I guess they didn't stock them in the stores. It's just like an order thing, but that's all they cover. And so they were at, you know, Rocky Mountain Race Week. They were at, was it Mega Week? They'll go to Six Summer and all that stuff. So they kind of travel around with it and cover them. And
yeah, did you guys watch any of the Six Summer coverage?
I've been like, I wanted to.
Yeah, it was like whatever YouTube videos I happened to come across is all I was able to catch.
Man, it looks like it was so much fun. And I don't know if you guys are super into him or not, but you know, the whole Cletus McFarland, that whole McFarland racing thing. I just like the energy. I like watching it. They're always messing around doing silly stuff. And so, man, waiting for his video to come out every day was like waiting for my cocaine to come in.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm on a big drag and drive kick.
So one thing I really liked about them doing that cheap car challenge is it's a little bit more grassroots. Yeah, well, but I mean, still, it's a little bit more. It's not the full, you know, tube chassis car again. You know, they're back to kind of something that most people would be out and running around in, and I think it's pretty cool.
For sure.
No, I agree. I love the cheap car challenge idea, and there was even a couple people there who decided they were going to do Six Summer and try to build a car for the same budget. Obviously, they had different rules. They didn't have the sponsorship and all that sort of stuff, but just that whole concept to me seems really cool. And you know, I grew up watching Roadkill and all this other stuff. So for me, is like the trip, I think for me is what really brings me to the drag and drive stuff. Cause it's like, you're not just going to show up and make 3 passes and, you know, put the car back in the trailer. It's like, no, your stuff has to be sorted.
Yeah. So that was my thing. Like, I never understood how somebody could be like, oh man, I got a whatever Camaro, but it's a drag car and it just sits there and they never drive it. And I'm like, I want to go drive my stuff. And it was kind of unheard of, I guess, you know, when I was just getting into cars. When you get to a certain level, they're a race car or don't drive well in the street. But I mean, I've always wanted to keep everything of mine in a good level to where, I mean, I could do just about anything. I guess more the pro touring thing, but I mean, I'd love to be able to do some of the drag and drives. It's just trying to get the time away. And
it's a commitment for sure.
Yeah.
Like we've got one that they do local where it's literally like you go somewhere, you meet up, you have to drive to the track, you have to make passes, and then you have to like idle for so long. And then that's like the extent of it. And I'll probably do that with my car. But yeah, I love the idea. And I don't know if you've heard of the Back to the Streets drag and drive, but you can look that one up. It starts like in the Maryland area. I think they go to Cecil and some other places, but so it's a no prep drag and drive. So each track they're doing it no prep, and so it kind of adds another equalizer in a sense to what, because you got to be able to get your tune up right and actually get down the track. And you know, some people love no prep, some don't, but it's an interesting event too. They just had it a few weeks ago.
No, that's cool. And I think the drag and drive thing for me is just a good mix of what I used to like to see in like Street Outlaws and some of that sort of stuff, where it's a little bit more kind of, I don't want to say open, but just different, you know? I personally think the reason that NHRA has had so many trouble for so many years is that, you know, it's all the cars look the same. They all kind of do the same. And you watch a drag and drive and you'll have a 55 Chevy running 6.5s, and then you'll have a Crown Victoria that runs 8.5. And, you know, it's just it's a good mix. It's a good variety. And there's just a lot of good personalities in there, I think, right now.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Well, and my take on it really is the drag and drive adds an element to where, like Chris was saying, you know, it's not just a purpose-built race car that gets trailered everywhere. And so for a guy like me, you know, it might actually give me a reason to go and build something, because not only do I have to build a car that can go down the track and put a decent time down, but I've also got to build something that's reliable. And so the guy that's got the car and way deeper pockets than I have, his stuff might break from one track to the next, and I've still got a shot. You know, and that makes it interesting in a world of Cletus McFarland's and a lot of these other guys where, you know, they've got deep enough pockets to go out and build, you know, these cars that are running high 6s and 7-second quarter miles, right? Like, I'm never going to build anything like that. I got kids to put through college and stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the drag and drive really gives you something. It's kind of, I guess it's, in a way, it's our generation's version, but like a bracket racing, right? It's something else.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, it's something other than just run what you brung and see who's the fastest. It gives you something to kind of equalize it without it being bracket racing.
Right.
Yeah, because that was the one thing about bracket racing for me, because I tried it a couple times and I'm just like, that's not my thing. I mean, you know, I want to go out and I want to find cars that are similar and then kind of see, you know, where do we all stack up. But like you said, the road trip becomes the equalizer, and it's less about how much money you have and how much motor you brought, but can you make your junk live?
Yeah, and can you survive it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there was one year Matt was doing, I can't remember if it was Back to the Streets or did he do a different one. But, you know, they were talking about how some of the guys were, like, to save money and stuff, like, they're camping at the tracks.
Yeah.
Which I think would be cool, but then you throw in, okay, you're out there 5-6 days. Where do you shower? And they were literally buying Planet Fitness memberships.
Yeah, I was going to say.
to pop in and get a shower, right? And I was like, that's not a bad idea.
No, that's not a bad idea.
Option. I've actually thought about doing it just from some traveling around. Just that way, if I want to just pull off somewhere, take a shower, or sleep in the car. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and then when your back's all tore up from having to pull the transmission out 2 or 3 times that week, you can lay on that fancy water jet massage bed thing they have too.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if I got to a point I was having to pull a transmission, I'm like, I'm calling it. It depends. My car is a pain, but you know, my car was not built with serviceability in mind. My car was built with, I took this thing apart a long time ago. I'm ready to see it run. And so I just started slapping stuff back together, and I've got a lot of improvements to make before I make any really long trips.
Well, it sounds like your guys' projects are kind of like mine. I don't really have a time frame for when they'll ever be done. They'll probably never be done, but you know, just keep chugging away at it. I'm going to have it forever. So,
well, so one update, I'm going to talk about me for one quick second about this. I have officially swapped a motor mount on the OBS.
Ooh,
one is done. I've been talking about that motor mount.
You said you were getting ready to do the other one, and I said, wait, what, 3.5 years?
Yeah, something like that. No, so, I mean, and it really wasn't bad. I just, you know, I dropped the inside bolts on the A-arm, dropped it down, and was able to kind of pry it down and get up in there. Just the design, the way they did those motor mounts is awful. But I would have had them both done, but the A-arm fought me a bit going back in, and it got dark, and I was like, all right, I'll do the next one this weekend. So, but yeah, so some progress on the OBS. It might actually make LS Fest this year. We'll see. But yeah, that is the hope.
Yeah, that's good.
But so other than the F-150, so have you got any other projects or anything you're wrenching on?
No, not right now. Just mainly my truck. I've got a Harley that was my dad's that we've had forever. That's pretty much it right now. And then I just got the daily beater, you know, keeping them running.
That can be a full-time job too, especially if you're Chris.
Oh God.
You have the worst luck with daily drivers.
Right. I just put a tensioner on my Suburban in a parking lot for the air conditioning. And then I broke the new one. I'm like, really? I was pissed. And I had like khakis on and a polo. And I was covered in grease all the way up to my shirt. And I walked back in the store. The guy was probably like, what the hell has this guy been doing?
We have a 2001 Ford Expedition that's got like 348,000 miles on it. and I just can't figure out how to part with it because it just keeps going, and it's no car payment, so it's kind of like, we'll just keep going, I guess.
And look at trying to replace that thing with a newer modern vehicle that same size, and it's so expensive.
You could rebuild it probably 4 times over before it was worth buying something newer. And the newer stuff, I'm the cantankerous old guy and all this technology, but we just had to deal with the dealership with my mom's car again on that Buick. We've put 2 camshaft intake sensors on it, just trying to keep the check engine light from coming on the thing, So
yeah, and that's kind of what I like about that particular engine platform is I have a lot of experience with it because it's essentially what's in my truck. So like everybody complains about doing spark plugs on them. I'm like, I can do spark plugs in an hour. It's no big deal, just because I've done it so many times. But it's no variable valve timing, nothing crazy like that. Just basic port fuel injection and sender.
Yep. Yeah, that's that. I mean, it's the same reason I am like I am with the LS. When we were looking for my son's truck, it was like, hey, we're gonna get. We got him a Silverado with the 4.8 because I was like, I know where every sensor and every bolt is on that thing. So, if we have to do something to it, it's, it doesn't seem like a daunting task. So,
as long as it doesn't mess up a lifter.
Swapping those isn't even that terrible anymore now that I've had it apart and know what I'm doing. But
yeah, but these are the old. I mean, even still, they can still wipe lifters, but I mean, they're not this is not a DOD truck.
Yeah, his is a 03, so it didn't have the DOD stuff in it. Now my truck does, and I'm at 140. I think I just rolled over 147 on it. So I feel like I might be on borrowed time. Every once in a while, I crank it up when it's cold, and I hear a little, and I'm like, no, please don't
do that.
And then it just stops, and I'm like, all right.
So my 08, it failed at like 114,000. And so then I put the cam and all in it and sold it at like 118,000. It also lost the transmission like 110. So it was like 110 transmission went.
How many times?
Yeah.
How many times did the
transmission? And that one
go?
Just once.
Oh.
No, and that one was just one. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought you put a couple transmissions in that thing.
No, I had 3 of them in that Yukon I had before that. But that was a stock one and then 2 built units. The first one lost overdrive or 3-4 clutches after 8 months, and I sent it back. They sent me another one, and it worked, but it had a first to second second to third or first to second flare up when it was cold, and then it got totaled. So I parted it out and sold all that.
Was it 4L60s?
Yeah.
And 4L80 swapped the world.
Yeah. Well, so now my current Suburban is a 3/4 ton with a 80E60.
So far, my 4L60E behind it's technically 4L65E, but sitting behind my 60 is still kicking so far. So we're might be on borrowed time. We've made 10 passes and then just regular driving on it. But so far so good.
No, one thing about your car though versus like the truck is the weight difference.
Yeah, it's a lot lighter. And the 4L65s are a bit stronger than the regular 4L60s.
Well, and what's interesting, I was watching, I think his name is Matt Sanford. He's got some Dr. Tune 'em All. He's got some fantastic tuning videos on YouTube. And I was kind of watching those, and he was really talking about how a lot of people are like, oh, I'll turn off torque management and stuff. He's like, look, it's part of why you're chewing your transmissions up and spitting them out. Like some of the stuff is okay, just keep it out of where you need the power. And he's got a great video on how to tweak and tune the 4L65Es, or 4L60s even. But I've got to go back through it, and I'm just going to validate kind of where mine's at before we go make passes again. But yeah, Performance Transmission Shop built mine. They, of course they say, oh, it's good up to 550 horsepower, and we'll warranty it for 12 months. I don't think I put it in the car for 12 months, so they got one over on me, that one. But I felt better about it.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Tuners can make or break some of that stuff, and factory engineers didn't put that stuff in there because they were dumb. I think sometimes we tend to think that we're smarter than the people who built the car, and sometimes we are. We see stupid stuff all the time, but at the same time, they usually have a pretty good reason why they did something a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the aftermarket folks, racers and whatnot, assumption is that maybe they put that in place to protect it from your average driver, or maybe, keep people from doing something stupid. I know, like with the SRT 8300 that we sold, it was, well documented that once that thing got over 100 or over 201 degrees, like the tune was like way conservative, and it was all like a bunch of EPA stuff. And so, instead of retuning the car, you could just put a 180-degree thermostat in it, and now you kind of kept that performance because it never got to that temperature to where the tune would, kind of pull some power out of it. But I mean, so, I think a lot of times the perception is, oh, they did it for that reason, maybe, for EPA or whatever. And so we can turn all that crap off. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, like those guys are a heck of a lot smarter than me. So I got to
Heck of a
trust them
lot
a little
smarter
bit.
than me too.
Yeah. So speaking of, seeing stuff in the shop and just working every day, obviously I got to ask, so, you've been with Ferrari 11 years. So how did you get started in that? Did you come through school and know you wanted to be, working in a shop? Did you start at a dealer, or was it just like I want to work on Ferraris? Like how did that come about?
Yeah. So actually, I was in tech school and I had an opportunity to work at an independent shop, and they did mostly European cars, which I had never really messed with. But I was like, hey, it's an opportunity. I'm going to take the opportunity. And then they did a couple of Ferrari things and Lamborghini things. And so I just kind of paid attention and asked good questions. Ended up actually leaving there, and then I went to work for a detail company while I was still in tech school. And he detailed all of the new Ferraris that were at the Ferrari dealership. Well, one day I'm out there detailing these cars with him, and I see their master technician walk over, and he's looking at a car, and he was kind of like looking at me or whatever, and so I kind of just walked over, and I knew just enough to be dangerous, like just enough to ask the right questions and say the right things, I guess. And he went back to the service manager at the time and just said, "Hey, we should hire this kid. He asks good questions." And so got my foot in the door there. I was technically supposed to be detailing cars. I think that lasted about a whole 48 hours. And then I was just in the shop, and I just, I was 20, I think, at the time. And so I just asked questions, and, some of the best advice I feel like I ever got was just be teachable, be approachable, be teachable, and don't ever think you're smarter than you are. And yeah, that's kind of how it came. And I was there with them for 11 years, day to day at the dealership.
That's awesome. And you're a service manager now, right? Do I remember
I
that right?
was. I actually I left the dealership life back in September. So really wanted to focus on kind of just spending some more time with my kids, and working 6 days a week for a long time can be tough.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were getting ready to have another baby. We have 4 kids. So we have a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old, and then we have a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old. And so I was kind of looking at it, and it's like, man, we're getting ready to have another baby, but I don't even really know the newest one all that well, And so, I don't, it sounds kind of crappy saying it like that, but that was the truth.
Well, you spend so much time providing, like it happens,
Yeah. And so I just kind of made the decision that I was going to do my own thing for a little bit and try out some other venues. And, but the Ferrari stuff's still in me. So I got asked to go work on, 4 or 5 race cars last month up at COTA. And so I ran 4 or 5 race cars, and, I'm just enjoying life a little bit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think he sent me some pictures one day. He was like, yeah, this is not a bad day at the office. And I'm sitting there just like looking at my laptop like, and I mean, everything becomes work, right? But back to your earlier point, and I know I'm not intentionally just plugging a bunch of podcasts, but like things are coming up. But there's one, it's called Dad Bods and Beards. I don't know if you've seen or heard that one, but so those are, I think one of the guys, the guy that started Copper Johns, that does the beard oils and stuff. And I bought some of their stuff before I started making my own. And, man, they had a guy and was like, what advice would you give? And that was his big thing, is he said, I was listening to this one when I pulled up at the gym this morning, so it's fresh in my mind, is like, you find when you get into circles with very successful people, they're all vulnerable with each other. And in most cases, they have no problem asking for help, asking for advice, and providing it to other people. And, I think you have to be vulnerable enough to start the conversation sometimes. And I was like, well, yeah, but how do you know you're not bothering the other guy? And he kind of put it into a perspective that, for me, that when I was first starting out in the gym, the dudes that were over there just killing it, and the power lifters that were in the gym, like, you don't approach those guys, like, because they're busy, they're locked in, you're going to bug them. And 9 times out of 10, if you walk up to those guys and ask for some advice, form, some kind of lift or whatever, they're super happy to share any knowledge that they have, right? Because they're competing against themselves, not you or anybody else. And yeah, sometimes just being vulnerable and asking that question, like, people that are successful, really successful, don't tend to like hoard knowledge or not want to
Mm-hmm.
be, and they're teachable people. So I think that's fantastic advice, and it's just odd or interesting that I heard that this morning.
Yeah, and I think it's I don't want to be the old white dad being like, well, my generation, but I think that was a big problem of my generation, of people just not willing to take the time to be teachable and take advice or ask for help, or and doing learning on their own. I don't know when people decided that everything I need in life should be taught to me at school or taught to me at work or taught to me in college. It's like, no, you got to keep learning. And I spent so much of my own time learning and researching and just trying to be the best I could be at what I was doing. I ended up going to Italy, and I had the opportunity to compete against 12 other guys from all over the country for their technician challenge. And I ended up finishing second overall in the country in 2019. And, a lot of that was based on me studying on my own time and learning on my own time.
That's awesome, dude. That's a heck of an accomplishment for sure. And yeah, I mean, and I see it in IT just the same. You have, I think, the generation ahead of me, when I first entered the field, there were a lot of guys that, I've seen it a lot in some IT places where, there was a guy who really liked computers, but he wasn't like an IT guy, but he was like maybe in facilities. And then he just sort of transitioned into it one day because he liked computers and he taught himself a lot and he came up and learned it. And then his job security was knowing how everything was held together with duct tape and baling wire. And he didn't want to share any of that because that meant he was less valuable, right? That was kind of the mentality for quite a while. And it's not really that way anymore. But yeah, I remember coming in on Saturdays to just watch guys do mail server migrations because I needed the experience and needed to learn how to do it. And I didn't want to be the guy that had to Google everything, but spoiler alert, we all Google everything. But
you haven't moved to a Microsoft Copilot to answer all your questions?
No, I'm a Claude AI guy. Well, and you mentioned that, like the self-learning and being so like, and like trying to teach yourself, that's only going to be intensified really with, Gemini and Claude. And now you've got Grok from, which is the X AI. So many of them, like I sat down the other day because I've been reading Atomic Habits. I think it's James Clear.
Good book.
Yeah, it's, and I was talking with a buddy of mine. None of these books that I've got on this shelf right here are groundbreaking in the sense that they're not telling us anything we don't know. You got to find the one that's in the wrapper that makes sense to you and makes you want to do it. Atomic Habits is very, very good. I've got a couple that I reread every now and again. I'm not a guy that rereads books. I want new perspective, something new. But in doing that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to kind of pick this apart, try to personalize it. But instead of doing a bunch of Googling, I'm going to use Gemini's, like the deep research and like have it, and it'll do like it's a learning coach, and you just ask it questions and you sit there and and it'll walk you through how to do habit stacking, for example. And it's interesting. It's exciting, but it's also going to compartmentalize even more people and take some of that human interaction out of it. And that stinks.
Yeah. And I really hope that we don't end up with people who are tone checking or whatever all of their conversations through some sort of chat GPT AI system. Because like you said, the human interaction, yeah, that's great that, maybe once in a while if you need to do something like that, but don't forget how to talk to people,
Yeah.
because it's just, you're never going to get anywhere.
For sure. Yep. Well, and I saw a thing the other day. It said, "Look, man, we're about 10 years from the doctors that are graduating got their degree with Chat GPT. So you better start getting in shape now."
Yeah, I get that.
Well, there was a huge discussion on a it's actually called the WAN Show. It's a technology podcast that they do every week, and there's a big discussion on there about doctors using AI and to like summarize notes, visit notes, and that sort of stuff. They're wearing microphones and using it for that. And it was kind of funny because I'm like, my mom's a dentist. I remember them doing that like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where they would wear the little headset and mark things off. So it's funny too that sometimes these new technologies bring to light things that we've been doing for a long time that people just never realized.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a friend that's IT and like a radiology group, and like the crazy thing is AI is going to really revolutionize a lot of stuff with medicine, right? Because you can parse so much data and you can kind of go through, but like radiology, X-rays, things like that, you got to think they take thousands of images. So when you're talking about training a model, they're really going to be able to train like to review ultrasounds, MRIs, that sort of thing. And not to say that radiologists will be obsolete, but they'll kind of be like the final check to go in and look at it. But, I think the AI will be able to really spot anomalies much sooner probably than a human eye, right? And take some of that out. And so it's exciting in that regard. Obviously there's economic impact with some of your radiologists if they were to get replaced with AI, but I think the future of what medicine could be, and if it progresses at a rate that like AI really should allow it, like I'm interested to see where that takes us from just a personal health perspective for sure.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that if AI had helped diagnose you and an actual doctor didn't look at it and verify the AI, do you think that you would be okay with that? Or do you think that you would need to be able to have the ability of actually having somebody to hold accountable?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I know the things that sometimes I'll ask the AI just for something very, very simple that it gets wrong. They call it AI hallucinations, right? So I for sure would want that final review. I guess the question becomes, it's kind of like building a car at a plant, right? Do you suddenly need less bodies to do it? So it's not that they'll ever completely go away, but do they need as many when they're just doing the review versus?
It will make them way more efficient. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, it does, like in my day job right now, mundane tasks that I don't want to do over and over and over again. If I've got a spreadsheet with, 10,000 rows of something and I need to go analyze that data real quick, I'm going to feed that into Claude in a heartbeat. I'm not going to sit there and do calculations and set up formulas on another table to do the analysis when I can have it at least get me 80% of the way there. So I can go be doing something else and come back and do the last 20%. Like that, it's a tool. It's not meant to be a companion. It's not meant to be your only coach and mentor. And I could definitely go on and on about AI because there's some fascinating things that it's doing. But I think what's scariest to me, I feel like I'm talking a lot, so I'm going to stop for a second and let you guys chime in on this. But I feel like my kids who are teenagers right now are going to, if they were to go and plug something into Gemini or Chat GPT and ask it a question to research something, whatever it spits out in their mind is truth. I'm going to look at it critically, but you're going to have an entire generation that it's like, oh, well, it has vast amounts of data to train the model, so it must be correct. And
yeah, it's kind of bringing it back to the car thing almost a little bit. It's like, oh, well, AutoZone said it was such and such. It's like, that's not really how that works. I mean, there's so much stuff that affects other things. I mean, there's no scan tool or code reader in the world, or AI model for that matter, I think, that's going to be able to accurately fix machinery.
Yeah. And that's, my brother is, he runs a company doing garage doors and like gate openers and things like that for, residential and commercial. And when your garage door spring breaks, like there's never going to be, AI can tell you how to replace it. and it can tell you how dangerous all the tensile strength on that spring is and how much kinetic energy is tied up in that thing and how it can throw you off a ladder in a heartbeat. And, you might try to do it, but you'll always need a professional to come and do a lot of that stuff. And
tricks of the trade.
I'll tell you one thing. You ain't going to catch me messing with garage door springs. I've seen way too many fail videos on YouTube and TikTok of that for me to get involved. So I'm definitely calling somebody.
Yep. Yeah. I
put
job
garage door up years ago, and I mean, my springs will move around every now and then. I look at them, I'm like, oh, but I mean, yeah.
The last house we had so I had never seen this, and they scared me more than one of those springs. Is it had like cables on either end would spring. It like stretched the spring out when the door went down and pulled it back. And there was one on each side.
That's how mine is.
And I kept thinking, like, I'm going to open the door one day and be standing here, and that thing's just going to ping across the garage. And, as much as the ones in the center, they have so much energy, at least they can break, but they're not coming off of that rod. But yeah, that one always really, really scared me. And I was like, man, and if it comes loose, at best, it's going to tear up the paint on my car. At worst, it's going to hit me. So,
or one of the kids.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's actually how mine's set up. And it's been like that ever since I've been here. But
they move a lot.
They do. Oh yeah. They're like,
that's great. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I'll have to get a video. See, I mean, my garage, I don't have a garage door opener on. It's a detached garage. But yeah, so it's just like long springs, and it pulls tension.
So they stretch out, and that way it helps pull them up. Yeah, mine was that way, but mine was a powered opener. I had the dual. And what size are the doors? Because surely they're not like 18-foot doors like mine on my house now. They're like the single car doors. Yeah, I don't think you can get by with that
or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So that's what we had. We had two, of the single doors. Mm-hmm. I don't think you could get. My brother could tell me, but I don't think you could get by with that on a 18-foot 2-car garage door. But that would be scary.
Yeah, it would be. I'll have to put up a video of it, like a little short.
Speaking of the Ferrari stuff and garage doors, because it totally rolls together into what I'm about to mention. Did you guys see the Ferrari privateer team that won the 24 Hour of Le Mans?
I did not know that they were the winners. I watched some of it.
Yeah, so it was the yellow 499P. They won the 24 Hour of Le Mans, so that makes 3 years in a row that Ferrari's won the 24 Hour of Le Mans. But this time it was the privateer team who hadn't won it yet. So it was I think the 51 car won it the first year, then the 50, and then now the 83. That's 3 years in a row. And do you guys know who the main driver is? I'm going to try to say his name right. Robert Kubica. Anyways, he was in a really bad, I'll have to send it to you guys. He was in a really bad car accident where a guardrail went through the car, and they actually had to my understanding is they had to sew his arm back on. So he does not have a very good arm, but he still rocketed that team to a win at Le Mans.
Wow. That's crazy.
A lot of folks talk about athletes like, football players and everything else, but race car drivers, serious race car drivers are an absolute different breed. There's nothing that's going to stop them from being in those cars. And I watched the Dale Earnhardt documentary, and you look at the stuff that he did and, wrecking cars and, hops back in it and finishes the race, or like stories like that. The stuff that, Senna went through, like just it's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
They live for it.
Even like Niki Lauda, getting caught in the fiery accident and coming back and still winning and all that other stuff. I mean, you just have to be the mindset you must have to have. And then you look at somebody like Lewis Hamilton, who's, I think he's 44 now or 45, still competing at a very high level in motorsports. I mean, you don't see that in football, hardly ever, mm-hmm. But there's lots of people who competed in high level of motorsports, and then, they might retire from NASCAR or F1, but then they're off doing drifting or whatever else they want to do that they find interesting. And I think motorsports is just such a unique thing that I just have the passion for it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's funny, like growing up, I remember my granddad was a big NASCAR guy. He watched the race every Sunday. And back then I was like, they're just driving in circles. And like now I look at it and I go, okay, First off, to be able to build a car to run wide open for 3.5, 4 hours and barely let out of the throttle is great. But then the stamina of the drivers to be able to sit there and do what they do. And like Shane Van Gisbergen just won. So it was the first time NASCAR raced internationally. So they went to Mexico City and raced down there where F1 races. And so watching all these NASCAR go around an F1 track was chaos, but it was great. But I think he won by like 18 seconds. I mean, he was so far ahead because he's good at like feathering the clutch to get a little more rotation out of the car coming into the turns. And so he's a road course guy. And so he really did that. But come to find out, the whole time he had a stomach bug. He was coming out of both ends, just felt awful the entire race. And I mean, just there's a level of fortitude to it. But to your point, like Tony Stewart going from NASCAR to now he's in NHRA. And he talks so much about like with drag racing and HRA, there's so much camaraderie in it. It's not, you know, they'll manufacture some rivalries, but the truth is he's like, we're all hanging out in the pits and swapping stories and, you know, just racing. But I think NHRA's got a big image problem. You mentioned it earlier that there's just, you know, there's something that they need to do to make it a tad more exciting for the fans. But in-person events are amazing because you can go right into the pits, watch them, you know, rebuild these cars. It's amazing. But then like John Force, I mean, God, he just retired last year after a major accident because he had it was a traumatic brain injury. And so they were like, you've got to retire. And so, but I mean, look at how old he was, you know, to be able to still do that. And I said something to the cruise in the other day. The guy was talking about, you know, sports versus race car driving. I'm like, look, I can be fat and still do a good quarter mile time. I just got to put more power in the car.
Yeah. Well, and two, I mean, you think even with his age, I mean, the reaction time that's required to muscle one of those things through there sometimes, I mean, he had to have been still very, very sharp up until that accident. And I personally think John Force, I think he's going to go down with the Nicky Laudas and those sorts of people that are just legendary because he did it for just ever. I mean, like you said, until last year, when I turned on NHRA, John Force was there from the first drag race I could never remember watching to now I'm, you know, to 31 years old. I mean, that's crazy.
And Brittany Force is still out there doing it, and she's going to carry that legacy on. She's a fantastic driver, you know, so it's, it, like you said, motorsport is just, it's so unique. And when I first started watching F1, it's not that I didn't get it, but I just never paid it a whole lot of attention. And it's mostly because I'm kind of lazy and most of the races are really early in the morning here in the US. But, you know, and I'm just not usually one to watch recorded sports. But, you know, when I first started watching, it was like, okay, who do you root for? Well, I literally was scrolling through and it was like, oh, number 3. Well, Dale Earnhardt was number 3. So maybe that's my guy. And I started looking into who Daniel Ricciardo was. And I'm like, okay, this guy likes Dale Earnhardt. He's got to be one of the most likable guys on the planet. That's my guy. So then I kind of, you know, by proxy become, you know, kind of follow Red Bull. But at the time I had a dislike, I think, for Lewis Hamilton, but not because of Lewis Hamilton, but the fact that every race I turned on those first few years that I was watching F1, Ferrari so far out front, the 3-4 position, you know, is all that was worth really watching because you knew Ferrari or Mercedes was going to be, did I say Ferrari? Mercedes was going to be so far out front that there was no competition to it.
Yeah, that was my big problem with getting into it too, was just watching it, you know, it felt like the Lewis Hamilton show every weekend. And, you know, that's not fun. That's not fun to watch. But I have to say, I think this season has probably been so far the best F1 season I've watched. You don't actually know who's going to win. There's always good battles. And, you know, yeah, you're going to get some of those street circuits like Monaco where, you know, pretty much just by the data, like whoever gets pole is probably going to win because it's just such a narrow track. But, you know, watching them this season, man, it's been awesome. I'm stoked. I'm like a little kid in a candy shop when it's F1 weekend. You know, it's like because the last one was on Father's Day weekend, and my mom's like, well, you know, when you guys coming out? And I was like, look, I'll come out early, but I'm watching F1. You know? And so I was like, that's all I want to do today. It's Father's Day weekend. That's all I want. I just want to watch. I want to watch the race. After that, I'm open to anything. So we went up there and watched the race, and you know, people are trying to talk to me, and I'm like, kind of like trying to be nice, but I'm like, you know, let me watch because it's just such a good season so far.
Yeah, it's been good. Like McLaren hasn't run away with it. They've had, and last week, was it last week or was it Father's Day weekend? They kind of had a little mishap
This
with
Father's
Lando
Day
and
weekend.
Oscar Piastri. Yeah, so that was interesting for sure.
I was, obviously I'm rooting for Ferrari every weekend, but if I had to pick a second team, it's going to be McLaren every time. And I'm sitting there watching the TV, and I'm just like yelling at the TV, and everybody's like, "What happened?" And I'm like, "What? Like, why are you guys racing each other that hard that we're gonna put ourselves in this situation?" Like, I was just so frustrated. But when you get into it, that's what happens, and that's, I think, one of the ways you're watching something that you enjoy when it matters to you that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I don't know. And I'm still a Red Bull guy, right? And for all the flaws, Max Verstappen is a incredibly talented race car driver. He's a little rough around the edges, sure. And I will say, like I said, I've learned a lot of respect for Lewis Hamilton just in watching him race, and not just his age, but his behavior on and off track. He seems like a stand-up guy. The same reason, like I said, I was big on following Daniel Ricciardo, right? Like I was like, that's a guy I'd sit down and have a beer with. That would be awesome. So, and I want to say when he got his first win or his first podium, they took him out to drive one of Dale's original, like the blue and yellow, like Wrangler car that one of those guys owned. And that was like his big reward. And he was just like a kid, it was just the genuine excitement on his face and all that. I was like, that's the type of guy I want to root for. And I think Lewis
for sure
is a guy like that too. And again, if you watch Max on the track, he's all business. Dude does not play. But then, like, you watch him on like his sim racing and stuff, or watch him spending time with his kid and stuff like that, and it's a totally different person. And so I don't know. I just wish they could put somebody in that second seat that would also be able to do well.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that.
I think those cars are just so like on the edge, and like Max can handle it, and they just haven't found somebody that. I mean, because Yuki Tsunoda's a talented driver.
Yeah, well, I had a mentor that was when I was doing the Ferrari Challenge racing. He kind of told me, he goes, you can set up a race car a couple different ways. He goes, but a twitchy race car is a fast race car. And so I think, like you said, yeah, what's probably happened is Max is just at such a level of driving and how he likes the car set up that the car now at this point, after the last few years, has just been tailored to his driving style. And, I think they're going to have a really hard time finding anybody who doesn't have a lot of experience to just hop in the car and be fast and reliable. Because Yuki's put down some decent lap times, but, it's a hard car to hold on to.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you're in traffic and, you're not starting from the front and just, a lot. And that's, to see what Max has done, basically running by himself. Like he doesn't have a teammate to, hold people up if they're, he's right behind you to give you a little room to get in that window for a pit stop. Right. And that kind of stuff, that's what really sold me on F1 is the strategy and really trying to understand why they do some of the things that they do. I know Chris's eyes are glazing over because I know he doesn't follow F1
well,
much,
that
but I can definitely talk about it.
My monitor, the camera makes a big difference.
But so bringing it back to America a little bit for you, Chris. So Cadillac is coming in 2026, and I'm super excited about that. Could easily become my race team because I love a Cadillac. But I saw a post the other day. I don't know if it was BS. It was supposedly Valtteri Bottas, like looking in the interior of like some kind of Cadillac and just posted a picture of it. And I can't remember if there was a caption with it or not, but I'd be very interested to see if they put Valtteri Bottas in a Cadillac because he's such a personality.
He is.
For sure. A great ambassador for the racing. But I mean, if Cadillac gave him a shot, that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, I think having an American team back, well, an American manufacturer back in would be good for the sport. And it's too, like, one of the things that I've noticed is F1 has done a great job of rebuilding their brand and rebuilding their viewership. And you kind of touched on it earlier, but I personally think NHRA is on the way to doing that. I mean, now they have the they're doing some of the like drag and drive cars kind of at some of their events. And, they've just got, like Alex Taylor, I think, is involved. David Freiberger from Roadkill is now one of their commentators and interviewers. So
yes,
I think they are doing a good job of getting back on track. But hopefully motorsports doesn't die with video games and all this other stuff. Because for a while that's kind of how it seemed. But F1 was able to rebuild their viewership, and I hope NHRA can do the same.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot going on behind the scenes too. Like this last NASCAR race was the last one that ran. So it was actually all live streamed on Prime Video instead of being on any of the networks. So actually, YouTube TV can literally attribute at least one membership to F1 and NASCAR because it's the only thing I really watch on there, except for the occasional episode of Family Feud. And I mean, and other than that, if I turn it on, I'm literally watching recorded reruns of Roadkill or Roadkill Garage or Hot Rod Garage. So it's the only reason I have YouTube TV. And then I went to watch the race one day and was like, I can't find the race, looking for the NASCAR race. And so they did a limited stint with Prime in the similar way that Netflix was doing some live sports stuff. And they nailed it. The commentary was good. The live coverage was good. There were no streaming issues. The camera work was great. Like, it was fantastic. And Dale Jr. had a lot to do with that. So Dale Jr. is actually heavily, because he was one of the commentators for the Prime coverage. And I was watching, it was Mark Martin or somebody on one of the podcasts I follow was talking about how much Dale is doing to really keep that sport alive and to bring some viewers back. And then you've got Cletus McFarland coming in and racing ARCA races, which is bringing a whole younger crowd to come watch roundy round racing. And I mean, it really, to me, it feels like a revival across all of them, F1, NHRA, IndyCar has, like, everybody just watches the Indy 500, but like, I've been watching the IndyCar races and they're incredibly fun to watch. So,
speaking of IndyCar, we have a IndyCar local here he's not from San Antonio, but he used to live in San Antonio. So Pato Award, if you're watching this, you're my boy still. I've had the opportunity to meet him a couple times, and he's just as funny and charismatic as he is on camera. He's exactly like that in real life. And just a genuine dude. And I had the opportunity. He crashed our Christmas party one time. We were at Andretti's, and he just, I mean, I can put down some pretty good lap times in a kart, but I mean, he was like, he drove around me like I was sitting still.
Yeah. I wonder if it was him. I seen it was a reel or something of a guy went into the pits, and there was like a guy doing the camera work, and he like gave him a bottle of whiskey, and just seemed like a genuinely cool guy, but I'm not sure who it was. But what gets me is a couple of the names of the guys racing IndyCar are, so you've got Will Power, like Will Power, come on. And then there was one guy, his name's Stingray, and then something's his last. I'm like, these guys have the most American names I have ever seen. But
yeah, and it's funny because, obviously my name's AJ, but it's spelled really weird. And I always tell people, it's like I have the most complicated spelling of the world's simplest name. And it's like, so I'm the same way. Like, when I see people with cool names, I'm like, dang, that's a cool name. Like, I have a buddy, his name's Joel Savage.
Yes.
Like, that's awesome.
I'm not gonna fight with anybody that's named that. Like, that's just not how it's gonna go.
Yep. Yeah, I was. I mean, you see my last name's all jacked up, and James is just boring unless I go by Jimbo or Jimothy. I'm just James, right? It is what it is. But I was friends with a guy in college, and his wife at the time, her maiden name was Outlaw, and I'm like, I'd have took her name, like, for sure,
in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Let me change my last name to Outlaw. Like, heck yeah, dude. So, that was a cool one for sure. And there was a customer of ours at one of the companies I worked at. I've worked for several different IT companies, and then we had a bunch of clients for each one of them. But like, I can't remember if it was an employee or one of the customers had the last name Firehammer. I was like, that's not real.
I mean, just talk about luck of the draw on that deal. I mean,
Right?
you end up with a name like Firehammer. I mean,
oh my god, that's so amazing.
What's your name, John Firehammer? Like, your parents just might be so cool enough that I'm probably not going to mess with you.
Yeah.
What a name for sure.
Wow.
There's a few I've come across over years, but that was definitely yeah, I'm like typing that email out to send it, and it's like fire. This is awesome.
Oh my god.
Like,
So,
are your parents Marvel characters, or like what's going on here?
Yes. So, Chris, we talked last week, and AJ, I don't know if you've ever seen this. We were talking last week about it's a self-contained, and you've worked on Euro stuff, so maybe you have. It's a power steering unit out of. There were quite a few Volvos that it's like in the passenger fender well or whatever. So instead of having it on a pulley, it's like just an electric pump, and you just wire it in and plumb it to your steering box. And I thought that was cool, and I mentioned it to the local shop that has my mom's car. And I was talking about the vintage air system for the Firebird, and he said he's found it's an all electric AC and heat system that he's putting into his project car, and he said it's like $600. So
yeah, you can mount it under the chassis, like up in the back, so you can keep the underhood super clean. Yeah, no, those things are awesome, and I think BMW also has a self-contained electric power steering system as well. Pump that's really common for my understanding is drift cars.
Really?
So yeah, that apparently a lot of the drift guys are moving to those electric pumps. And it's a cool idea. I love it. And same thing with the the electric AC compressor. I mean, it's just nice to have options. It used to be that you'd look at something and it was like, okay, everybody buys this, so I'm going to buy this. But now it's like, you look around long enough and you have electric vacuum pumps too that, hey, if you want to run that big cam, you can plumb an electric vacuum pump into your brake booster in between your engine vacuum and the electric pump. You'll have enough assist to still have decent power brakes instead of having to do manual brakes or hydro boost or any of this other sort of crazy stuff. So I just love how, we're taking some of those things that the OEMs are doing that are kind of like, well, that's kind of funky. But then you look at it and it's like, oh, well, it would actually make sense here in something that's, 50 years younger than it.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I like the idea, and obviously $500-$600 for a kit is way cheaper than a vintage air system, and like you said, a lot cleaner under the hood. So he's supposed to send me a link to it, but I'm very interested in that. I've got something
I'd be interested in also.
Yeah, I'll send you the link as soon as I get it.
I mean, my Trans Am is ready to go right now. I can go drive it most places, but it's been 100 here the last couple of days, so that's not happening.
Yeah, our heat index today was 104, I think.
Yeah, you're not lasting very long in Texas in a car with no AC unless you really have to.
Yep. So I've got a couple rapid fire questions, just some fun questions that you come on a car podcast, we're probably going to ask. But Chris, did you have anything else about anything you wanted to ask, or any topics you wanted to go over before I ask some fun questions?
I'm good to go.
So obviously you've driven some cool cars through the years, but everybody's got a dream car. So that's the cheesy question, but I got to ask. So if money's no object, like what's the car you're going with?
Okay, so I have to always preface this because I just have to. So street car or race car?
Let's start with street car.
Street car. For like, if I could just have one, but money was no option, it would be an F12 TDF.
So F12. So I remember one of the Ferraris that I just really had fallen in love with was the F12. Was it Berlinetta? Was it a hatch or a wagon? So is that the same thing, or I don't know enough about them to know?
Yeah.
The
so the TDF was the hopped up like kind of racetrack inspired version of the F12 Berlinetta, and so it had like just a more sophisticated intake system. All of them come with carbon racing seats. It's got a whole bunch of trick aero. But that car came out, I think, in like 2017. And when it came out, it was just like, wow, so you have those cars like the 458 Speciale, the F12 TDF, the 812 Competizione. Those cars are the racetrack kind of more focused version of the street cars. And I've never never come out with one that I didn't like.
Wow, yeah, the intake stuff, and then the arrow on the rear quarters and stuff, that is cool looking. I'll put some pictures up on the video.
Yes. So F12 TDF for sure. I remember we had a client who had one that he custom ordered, and it would have been probably not your normal spec. It had like brown interior and a gray exterior and like a red stripe and stuff. But I mean, it just in person, it was just stunning. And you look at it, and they take some of that old kind of race car, like with the vents and the rear quarters and all that sort of stuff. They take so much homage from some of the older cars that they built, even with the newer cars. And I just think that one was just perfect.
Yeah, that's awesome. You got any domestics on the list? I know you said you're a Ford guy too.
Yeah, I have a lot of domestics on the list too. I would really love to own a Chevy Nova too. I just love the way those cars look. I think they're gorgeous. And like seeing, for me, when I saw Daddy Dave's car for the first time, I was like, that's cool. El Camino for sure, because growing up, my dad had an El Camino. And then the third one would probably have to be a split bumper Camaro.
Excellent.
Ironically enough, not a single Ford on that list.
That's all right. So how do you feel about electric cars?
I think they have their place. I think that there are probably a lot of people who would never think about getting in a car and driving for 400 or 500 miles in a day. And so for them, that's probably great. Me personally, until I can do, the most I've ever done in one day was 1,000 miles. So until I can do 1,000 miles on a single charge, I don't ever think I'll be an EV guy. And even then, I think it would just be like a beater, a daily.
Yeah.
I don't see myself ever getting excited about doing anything beyond just driving it to the, I was going to say the gas station, but I guess driving it to the grocery store or whatever. I just, I don't see it. And I will say, the Rivian R1T, the truck, every time I see one of those, I'm like, that thing is really cool looking. Like it, not a Cybertruck guy, but the Rivians, I mean, I look at them and I'm like, dang, that thing's cool.
They look so much better than the Cybertruck.
I am convinced the Cybertruck was literally to troll and see who would buy that ugly monstrosity of a vehicle. Like all the technology in the world, but there's nothing about it that's redeeming from a.
And
their
cars look pretty decent. I don't.
Model S is a great looking car. Yeah. I mean, the Model 3's a commuter car. It's a mom car.
Still, I mean, they're not a terrible looking car. It's not like that.
No, even the Model X, the SUV looks good, but I don't know.
I kind of doors.
Yeah, I attribute the Cybertruck as like the meme coin of automobiles.
Yeah, that's true. That is true, because my 4-year-old's like, Cybertruck! And I'm like, oh my God, kid. He gets so excited.
I remember when the Hummer EVs were announced, and they didn't talk anything about range. They just talked about all the cool stuff that it would do. Like it, it can like, I don't know if you've seen it can like crab walk and all this neat stuff. And my first thought was I could hear my dad's voice going, that's just more shit to tear up, all them actuators turn. I'm like, hey, you're not wrong. But I still thought it was neat. And I was like, okay, if they could make that decent, I would think that would be kind of cool.
It will all get there, but probably not in our lifetimes, or maybe at the very end of them.
But Chris and I have talked about this, like why we just didn't go, like you could sell me on the idea of a hybrid for the instant torque on the low end with the electric, and then let it switch to the guy. Like you could sell me on that, but just EV all the time. And I've only ridden in a couple of Teslas, and like the weirdest thing is like sitting at a stoplight or sitting somewhere and like all you hear is the AC fans turning. It's just
it is weird, and no vibrations. You're not feeling anything. Like
I've never ridden one.
Oh, it's super weird. I got to drive a Plaid And
Wow.
I mean, they're fast.
They're crazy
really
quick.
fast. But it's super weird. But the Hummer, I think the Hummer thing is really cool. But I agree with you. I think the perfect balance right now is electric powered, electric assisted gasoline engines. You can still drive them as far as you need to. The battery packs are usually not crazy expensive to get fixed these days. There's people who are, even the old Priuses, they're still, tearing batteries out and replacing individual cells and all that sort of stuff. So I really think that's kind of the best of both worlds right now. And like you said, like having that instant torque and the torque vectoring that you can do if you have electric motors in the front and just a gasoline and electric motor in the back, you can do a lot of really cool torque vectoring stuff where, the car can be rear wheel drive when you want to drive it sporty and on the track or whatever. But, you get out in the rain and you've got 4-wheel drive instead of rear wheel drive, So yeah, I think that's kind of the perfect mix right now. And, seeing it cross over into motorsports too, I think was really what sold me on it. Because it's, they're using it at Le Mans, they're using it in F1, and then eventually the Ferraris came out with it, and the SF90, for instance, I mean, it's 1,000 horsepower and it's fast. It's definitely one of, if not the fastest car I've ever driven.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and the capabilities there. It's just the excitement factor of, cranking up a V8 or, I mean, God, hearing a V12, just, it's hard to replace that. And as hard as Dodge may try with their little speakers that sound like exhaust or whatever it was that they tried with the Challenger.
Well, did I see that they're canceling the all EV Challenger? That's it. They're not building any more of them. That they're done.
I had not seen that headline. I know we talked, I think last week, the week before, that like, what did Dodge do 1 year with like the 4 cylinders and no Hemi option in the Rams, and like it's back this year. So they're bringing the Hemi back already, and now they're going to be in the NASCAR Truck Series. So that's Rams going to have a truck in there. But I had not seen that about the Challenger, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, don't hold me to that because I didn't look too far into it. But if I'm not mistaken, I think they're canceling the EV Challenger, and it's kind of funny to watch them for the last few years, and especially during like 2019, 2020, those sorts of times. They were the ones who were supercharge everything. The Ram TRX and the Hellcats and the this and the that. And it's like they've been championing for so long on gasoline performance stuff. It really surprised me when it looked like they were moving all towards EV, but hopefully that's not the case. Keep gasoline forever. Gasoline to the front.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, they had the mandate, right? Like all the manufacturers had to be primarily EV or all EV by some deadline. And then that was one of, with the new administration, their executive orders now was to overturn that and not have it as a mandate. And so I think that released a lot of manufacturers from having to completely retool and go only to EV. But, and again, don't quote me on that either, but 100%, I know he turned that over, but I don't know all the stipulations to the law. On what the requirements were, if they had to be all EV or just had to have EV offerings. That part I'm not sure about, but I was glad to see that because, like you said, I mean, let's keep internal combustion engines around and let's find unique ways to make them more efficient. I'm all for that. Make them faster, great, let's do it. But yeah, not get rid of them entirely and force me to have something that would never suit me. Because like when we were taking my daughter on her senior trip to New Orleans, and it's like an 8.5 hour drive. I don't even think about flying. I'm like, I want to drive that. I want to go see that scenery. I want to make that drive. And I can't do that in an EV, at least not in their current state.
Yeah. And that's why I think if we can get to that 1,000 miles of charge, I think that would be ideal. But, even right now, I think that if 1 in 4 American families traded in their cars, whatever number of cars they had for EVs, I don't think we would have the infrastructure to even handle it. So the other part of it too is like the infrastructure is going to have to come with it. And Tesla's done a great job of what they have been able to accomplish with their infrastructure and stuff. But I mean, it's nowhere near the capability it would have to be at for that many people to be driving EVs. And I think we've kind of seen that in California right now also, where, they're having major power issues because everything's, so now I have to have solar panels on my house and pay for those to account
back to
for
the
the
grid.
extra. Yeah, I mean, it's getting crazy, and it's like, sorry, but let's keep burning those dinosaurs till we get that figured out.
I've got some friends out in the Rancho Cucamonga area, and they'll, tell me all the time, like during the day, sometimes they'll get up and they'll get a notification that like they're going to be without power for 4 to 8 hours on a particular day. And they're just, shutting down parts of the grid, and maybe they're doing upgrades. I don't know, what all of it is, but it could just be that it's so taxed to, they're having some issues out there for sure with keeping up with the demand. So.
Yeah, and we had a similar situation in Texas a few years ago where we had a snowstorm come in, which is very unusual for where we live. We'll get, it'll snow but not stick sometimes or whatever. But this was like, we called it snowvid. There was 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground, and whatever it was that had happened, our grid went down. We had no power at our house for like 48 hours, and it was 25 degrees outside or whatever. And by that next summer, they fixed it. Or by that next winter, it was fixed, And so I'd be really curious to know what's holding California back from putting in that infrastructure, since they do clearly have the need for it. But I just find that interesting.
Yep, for sure. All right, well, last question, and then we'll wrap, because I know we're all dads, and this is we're about 15 minutes past where we normally go, but this is great. We're probably going to do it again because
I've got 4 kids too, about. So yeah.
I've got 3, and actually all of them are home tonight. One, he disappears to grandma's when summer break starts, and a lot of times we don't see him, but he was home tonight to go hang out with some friends, and so got to go make sure he gets settled down at least. But so we did an episode, we talked about this, and then one of my favorite shows of all time, obviously, is Top Gear, with Clarkson and James May, and they did a whole series a long, long time ago about the best driving song. And so I'm always curious, like, what's your number one go-to? And I'm not talking just cruising. I'm talking about your driving song that makes your foot a little bit heavier. You got one that's your go-to?
Do.
All right. Well, they came up with Radar Love by Golden Earring, and now granted, it was a time ago, but yeah, I mean, I'm more in the, there's a lot of Metallica songs, Seek and Destroy, stuff like that I'm going to be really, if I'm really getting down, but I'm curious to know what yours is.
Yeah. So mine is Another One Bites the Dust.
Okay.
Oh, man, that's a good one.
I don't know why, but when I was doing dirt bikes and that sort of stuff, anytime I was passing anybody, that song would just pop in my head like Another One Bites the Dust. It's behind me now. And so I just got into the habit of, like, if I'm really focusing on driving or doing anything like that, yeah, it's Another One Bites the Dust for me. And I won't even turn it on the radio, but I'll just literally sing it to myself in my helmet.
That's awesome.
The one that always comes to me, that, like, it does not matter where I'm at, where I'm going, and obviously there's plenty of great Metallica songs, metal songs, stuff like that, but Panama from Van Halen is mine. That's like that. It's like, I don't know why, but it just gets me going every single time. And something about driving a 3rd gen Trans Am with the T-tops out, and Panama from Van Halen comes on, and I'm just like, I'm going to break the law.
Your inner 80s kid is just screaming at that point.
Yep. For sure.
That's cool.
Well, cool, man. Well, let's wrap it here, and I just let everybody know, remind them the name of the podcast, where to find it, YouTube, Spotify, all those places, and then we'll wrap it up here, and we're gonna have to plan to do it again for sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again for sure. Podcast is Prancing Horse Podcast. You can find it on Spotify, YouTube, anywhere where you get your podcasts at. Same thing on Instagram, Prancing Horse Podcast, if you guys want to follow us there, or Facebook. But we're relaunching everything, so kind of going video was my next step. So, invested a lot of money and time into that. The next thing is lighting. That's really the last thing I need. Usually I record during the day, so it's not as bad. But yeah, I could see, I was watching it the whole time. I'm like, the lighting needs a little bit of work if we're going to do anything at night. But yeah, Prancing Horse Podcast, come check us out. And, hopefully you guys will want to stay.
He does a much better job than we do of like scripted stuff. So you can actually hear like he's thought it out. It's not just me and and Chris ramble. It inspired me to really, I've got a script made up to do an episode about, when the Corvettes came into like the road course racing and how they basically created their own class, right? When the C3 vets came out, I think I've got the whole script about it, and it's been so long ago, but yeah. And it kind of inspired me to go and write that. And I want to record that one day for sure, but really great podcast. I've enjoyed all the episodes that I've listened to. I've listened to quite a few of them. Obviously the enjoyable one too, when you and your wife did the Ferrari movie review. You could tell you guys just had the back and forth there, and we've talked about maybe getting together and recording after we both have a chance to see the new F1 movie that came out. So
yeah, I think that would be really cool. That's so make sure you follow Prancing Horse Podcast, because you might just see a movie review with me and James.
Heck yeah.
That'd be pretty awesome.
But cool. Well, any last words, Chris? Do you have any fun marketplace finds this week? I didn't come across anything that I ended up buying.
So I'm supposed to be getting an LQ4 sometime this week. So
nice.
Yeah, that's from a guy I used to work with. So I'm sure sometimes he listens. I don't know, but yeah, he's supposed to come by and bring that, and that's about it.
You gonna swap the 5.3 and the Trans Am over to a 6.0? Be a cool kid like me.
Wait and see.
How often are you seeing aluminum 6.0s around?
Man, I'd like to see them a lot more, because I really want to take some weight off the front of that car. I mean, I love the aluminum 6.0, in the Caprice. It's a blast, but
take it out of the Caprice. Put in the Firebird.
No, the Caprice is
and then put a 6.2 in the
It's a really good daily.
LS3 in the Firebird, 6.0 in the Caprice. I like what he's thinking.
Make it happen, Captain.
I mean, all I could really need to do is just get LS3 heads and just put it on the iron block. The Trans Am's still 1,000 pounds lighter than the Caprice. So
I feel like that's what Josh has got LS3 heads on his, right? Because he just put down some pretty decent numbers.
I think his is an LS3.
That car's so well done. It's just so clean. Nice. It inspires me to want to actually get out and fix the ground effects on my car and rewrap them, because there's a big paint's peeling on them and stuff. And
all right,
this car's so clean.
This is going to get deep real quick. So
let's do it.
We were talking, and you were talking about gasoline forever, and then I got to thinking, and I'm like, we were going through this whole spiel. I'm like, maybe the Australians made a movie, like a documentary about America and how we're going to end up when they came up with Road Warrior and Mad Max and all that. It's like, holy crap, we're having gasoline wars and all this crap over here, and then like California's burning to the ground, and everybody's trying to scramble to get gas cars. I'm like, holy crap. They were just predicting
the foreshadowing. We missed the foreshadowing.
Right? Oh, so my God.
So it's the Australians and the Simpsons that are predicting the future, is what you're telling me.
I mean, oh, man, who's our Mel Gibson? I mean, is it just Mel Gibson?
Probably. Look, there's a lot of things the Australians get right, and like burnout competitions is one. Yes. Like those guys are wild with the stuff that they build. Like if you ever just want to see some crazy stuff, like they build some awesome stuff.
I'd love to have one of those utes, man. Those things are so cool.
Yeah. I really want a wagon. After getting into this car and then looking into a bunch of them, I'm like, man, I really like the wagons. Get a wagon with a 6-speed, that'd be a blast.
Yeah, it's like when I was talking about the F12. Right, like that. I love wagons and hatchbacks, and that's my jam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Still going to find a CTSV wagon one day, and I'm just going to convince myself to pull the trigger on it. Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I ran to a guy at the gym earlier that I know he's got one, and like it didn't do me any good to like I was passing him in the parking lot and was just like, hey man, I do photography. If you ever want to like shoot the car, it'd be awesome. I love the CTSVs. He goes, it's the funnest car I've ever owned. And I've owned a lot. He said, and I just absolutely love this car. And I was like, now I want one even more.
Yeah. Hey, you know what car I actually really like too, you don't see a lot of them, are the Chevy SSs they had out for a few years. One of those in a it's kind of like that Pontiac G8, GXP kind of car. Like that for me, it would definitely be one that I'd love to own.
Yep. We were just talking about it's Autotech Tyler, I think, on Facebook. He come out to LS Fest. We've seen him a couple years in a row now. I think we stayed at the same hotel. He's got some Pontiac Grand Prix that he's done LS swaps in, and he's been doing some drifting stuff with it now.
Yeah.
And
he's done rear wheel drive conversions in them too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's super cool. But I'm curious to see if he'll come out to LS Fest with it and do some of the autocross stuff, or if he's going to try to get into the drift. I don't know what he's planning for this year, but I haven't heard anything on my media pass yet either. So I'm wondering.
Like, who's James?
Yeah, exactly. This guy. He's not coming with Billy or the Warden. So
yeah,
we don't know this guy. But yeah, man. Well, I think like I said, we'll wrap it here. I know we've all got kids to tuck into bed if they haven't already. Mine's probably in there drinking Mountain Dew or Dr. Pepper and is wired and going to try to be up for several hours. But I'm going to go make sure he gets in bed. Man, this has been a blast. Really enjoyed it, AJ. I'm glad you got to come out and hang out with us.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. And we'll hopefully we'll be able to do some more stuff moving forward too.
For sure.
Yeah, it'll be
a lot of fun. Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you as well, and everybody. Have a good evening.
All right. See ya.
Thanks.